Shame, a show where we talk about our list of movie blind spots, movies that we have not seen, or at least one of us hasn't seen, on Mondays anyway. For one reason or another, we haven't seen, but we're finally getting around to watching them and then discussing them on camera for your amusement. Hopefully, amusement. I don't know. My name's Andy.
And I'm Adam.
And on Monday's episode, we tackled a movie that I had never seen, you had never seen as well. Yep. Directed by Jane Campion, starring Holly Hunter, Harvey Keitel, and Sam Neill. The Piano. Adam paired that with another movie from the previous decade. He's going to tell us all about what we're talking about today.
All right. Anna and Mike portray two characters in a film set in 19th century England who fell in love despite the fact that Mike's character is engaged in the French lieutenant's woman, or they say whore in the movie.
Yeah.
But
and they also say French lieutenants.
Lieutenants, yes, that's
French
true.
Lieutenants.
Miss Woodruff.
Wait a minute, I lost the place.
Page 50. I suddenly see you. You've got your dress caught in the brambles. I see you. Then you see me. We look at each other, and then I say, Miss Woodruff.
All right.
Right. I see you. Get your coat caught in the brambles. Right. Now I'm looking at you. You see me. Miss Woodruff.
I'm looking at you.
But now you come towards me to pass me. It's a narrow path and it's muddy. You slip in the mud. And I help you out.
Let's just do it again, okay?
All right.
Let's just do it again.
This movie came out in 1981. It is written by Harold Pinter, and it's directed by Carl Reese, I want to say. You're better at that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're on your own there. I know. I think it's Carol.
Carol Reese.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Reich? I don't know.
Pinter, you would know him. I looked him up. The big things that jumped up, and a little behind the scenes is I just look at whatever movies show up on the tiles and pull that if I don't know who they are. He directed The Servant, Sleuth, and Mansfield, wrote The Servant, which I think came out in the 60s, Sleuth and Mansfield Park, which came out in the 90s. He's had a long career. He's been around. He wrote for a while.
Yeah. And
Rice directed Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. Morgan ends with an exclamation point, and Night Must Fall.
Morgan, a suitable case for treatment.
Is that what?
Yeah, it continues. But yeah, you could also refer to it as Morgan.
Morgan. This movie, French Lieutenant's Woman, stars Meryl Streep as both Sarah and Anna. In case you can't tell from the title, they play dual roles a little bit. We have Jeremy Irons in his first movie starring role. It says.
Oh wow.
As Charles and Mike. We have Hilton McRae as his servant, his manservant Sam. We have Emily Morgan as Mary. We have Charlotte Michelle as Miss Trainer, and we have Lindsay Baxter as Ernestina, which is a very interesting name, Ernestina.
Yeah, it is. Ernestina scared stupid.
Yep. Ernestina goes to jail. I'll tell you after this. I heard some interesting the history of the Ernest stuff that I did not know. It's interesting. Right. So this is the movie I have never. Oh, the last thing I'm going to add is this is based off of John Fowles' novel that came out in 1969 of the same name. And John Fowles is an English novelist of international renown, it says, according to IMDb. He's critically positioned between modernism and postmodernism, whatever that means. I'm not that smart. So, French Lieutenant's Woman is a movie I've never seen. Again, picked it because Meryl Streep this is one of her many nominations. I think this is her first nomination as Best Actress, because I think before she got Best Supporting Actress.
She'd already won for Kramer versus Kramer, right?
Yep.
Best Supporting.
So I think that's right. She might have had one other Best Actress before this, but I think this was her first. One of her first. Let's put it that way. Never seen, but I'm going to toss it over to you. What'd you know about the French Lieutenant's Woman, and what'd you think about it after watching?
I did not know very much. I mean, I knew Meryl Streep was in it. I this is one of those movies because it came out, I think, just a year before Sophie's Choice, which she's also in, and which is also kind of a period romance. I think that one is her and Kevin Kline, if I'm not mistaken. But once again, this is a situation where I could get those two confused because I haven't seen either one. So going into this, I knew it had Meryl Streep, but I couldn't remember if it was Kevin Kline or somebody else in it. And it's not Kevin Kline. It's sadly not sadly. I like Jeremy Irons. It was it's Meryl Streep and Jeremy Irons, and there's a few other familiar faces in there. Although I could not tell you anybody's name. I know you listened to the cast, but I couldn't tell you honestly anybody's name. I just go, oh, it's that guy. Oh, it's that lady. Oh yeah, her. Oh yeah, I've seen her before. So but I didn't know the plot. I did not know that it jumped back and forth between. And I did think it was cool because the movie starts off with them doing a slate, and doing the clapper, and she, they're like, "Are you ready, Anna?" And she, but she's playing a character called Sarah, and she walks up on that seawall kind of thing and whatnot, and she looks cool in that like hooded cloak thing. She looks like very mysterious.
It reminded me a lot of like the witch she would play like into the Woods. Like a little bit like that, but I'm interrupting you, so I'm gonna say. I love that opening. Yeah, I think that's so awesome. Cool. I will talk about how I felt afterwards, but I think that is a great way to open the movie.
Sure. I did too. I because I was like, what in the world? Like, what's going on here? Like, because again, I think just from like the poster and stuff, you just think I'm going to see a period romance or something like that. So to see that to start off with, I thought, wow, what are we doing here? Like, how are we doing this film? So the movie goes along and it jumps back and forth between you see the movie, I guess, that they are filming, although you never ever see any other crew or anything like that in the movie. Like you don't see like a guy over here, with a camera or anything. So it's as though you are watching just a movie, right? And not a people filming a movie. So you're immersed in their story, the story of Sarah and Charles, who are the characters that they are playing on screen. And I liked that story for the most part. I mean, I think what I liked more than anything was I liked some of the dialogue that Sarah had, the character Sarah has. It's going to be kind of confusing, I think, talking about this, but I liked, so in the period romance section of the story, she's a very mysterious woman, and of course, the town thinks of her as some whore. Basically, she's a lady who has slept with this French lieutenant. He is long gone. Yep. She just kind of wanders the town, wanders the ocean, the wall there, goes to the cliffside. Yeah. Does things that a lady shouldn't do, right? And this is back in the old days, so it's like a lady should be doing only this and should and all these kind of antiquated things. But again, that was the style and the thought process at the time. But she's very fiery and independent, and when she meets the Jeremy Irons character, when she meets Charles, because he's engaged to another woman. I liked kind of some of the things she says. She has kind of a little monologue at one point about how, I don't remember, I wish I would have written some notes down about what she said, but she basically just talking about her independence and how, I know what I am, but there's a freedom in it. Like there's a freedom in me being,
she's like, she says something like she's like grown beyond like what a woman is because of that. She's leaned into what people call her and it's led her to be freer and all that kind of stuff.
I like that. I liked her like fierceness, her independence, and all that sort of thing. As the story goes along, so basically she ends up, as we always say, but I feel like I have to give a disclaimer. We're going to spoil this. Yeah. She ends up, because he's engaged to another younger woman, and he ends up sleeping with her. And falls in love with her essentially, but then she bolts. She takes off, and he spends 3 years trying to track her down. He has his lawyer and his lawyer, and then he hires another guy to kind of basically get, detective. A private detective to go find her, and he's looking pretty ragged. Meanwhile, in those 3 years,
he's growing a hipster beard.
I think you mentioned syphilis when we were talking about the piano. I thought that he could track syphilis from her because he looks pretty ragged, right? I mean, he looks like he's showing evidence of some sort of illness that he's got, but apparently not. So he does finally find her, and when they are reunited. They're reunited because she's like, oh, I told him where I was 3 years later. Because now, like, I feel okay, and I and all this stuff. So they end up together. But I found that very unsatisfying. I was like, why? I didn't really get why she all of a sudden was like, oh, no, we're good now. And he's just like, damn you, okay. And they just, I was like, I mean... Yeah, you want them to end up together, but it felt very half-cocked to me. I don't know. It didn't work for me. Meanwhile, in the movie, you're jumping back and forth to them as the actors who play those roles. I thought that was interesting. Again, as we mentioned, it starts off with them making the movie, so you keep going back to that. I just didn't see what it added to the movie, honestly. I didn't really. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool, but it didn't do anything for me. And I once again, I mean, I was kind of reading a little bit about the film after I was done, and they do mention in the movie, The French Lieutenant's Woman, when they're having a party, the actors at his house, because he's in love with the Meryl Streep with Anna. Yep. Mike is in love with Anna. They do talk about what ending are you going to use because the novel has multiple endings.
Yes.
And he's like, it has a happy ending, it has a sad ending. Well, we're going to go with the first ending. I mean, the second ending. And he's like, well, which one is that? And in the movie, they end up together in the period romance. That's the happy ending. They don't end up together. The actor, Mike and Anna, don't end up together. That's the sad ending. Yep. So, yeah, that's cool because they mention that being, having multiple endings in the novel. They kind of translate that to the screen. But in the end, it still didn't really mean a whole lot to me. Yeah. So I would say I found the movie fairly watchable, but kind of empty in a way. Like overall, I'm not sorry that I watched it. I'm glad you put it on the list. I finally, crossed it off. But it didn't really resonate with me in any strong way. Aside from the fierce, kind of independent, fiery attitude that Meryl Streep's character Sarah has. I keep having to look at Sarah in the period part. I liked that aspect of her, but I was unsatisfied with the overall kind of arc of their story and how it ended up. And I didn't really see what the kind of duplicitous nature of the movie really accomplished, other than just being kind of an interesting thing, but not really meaningful.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm pretty much in agreement with you, right? So I think it's so interesting that the movie starts off that way, but then we go for such a long spell of them in the period roles that I'm like, was this just like a weird way to start it? Like I didn't get what we were doing.
I thought that too.
And then we jumped back out, and I was like, oh, okay. So we have this long piece, and then they wake up in bed together, and they're answering a phone, and I'm like, did they have phones? Like they didn't have phones.
What's going on here?
Yeah. So for me, like, the jumping back and forth got really jarring. There was no really rhyme or reason why they were doing it. And it reminded me a lot of when we were talking about Little Women, right? I want them to find that point where it's like something's almost like you're doing like a episodic TV show. Like you want to cut for a commercial on a cliffhanger and stuff like that. And I almost want them to cut like from the the Victorian time to modern times, like on a cliffhanger, on something you want to hang your hat on something poignant, and then cut back and show that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the movie, I don't really feel does that. I think, like you, I did some reading about this movie afterwards. I think Sarah's character is supposed to be a very like modern woman, like as we think of her in this Victorian time, and so she's supposed to have more modern sensibilities. And honestly, she's kind of she's manipulative, because I think all the things she says to Jeremy Irons' character, to Charles, is the sleep with him. Because when they sleep together, he finds out that she didn't really sleep with the French lieutenant.
Yeah.
Because he's
Right.
So she's conniving and stuff like that, and then the end you find out that she hid from him because she wanted to, and then he was able to find her because she wanted to.
Yeah.
So she was very like conniving and manipulative, and it's really hard to kind of root for someone that's like that doesn't really want what's best for people around her and her you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're right. She is conniving and manipulative in her actions, and it doesn't. To me, it doesn't have a purpose. Like they do end up together. Like if at the end of the film she like grifts him out of like tons of money, I'm like, oh, she was like a con lady the whole time. Okay, like that makes some sense. But in this, it's just like, no, I stayed away for 3 years. I'm living with this family now.
Did some drawings.
Yeah, I'm doing some drawings, taking care of some kids, whatever. I'm nanny. I don't know. And I wanted you. Now it's time for us to be together. And it's just like, I wasn't satisfied with that. Yeah.
I know. I agree with you 100%. I think that maybe it was something that would play better in the novel than it did in the movie, because it felt like both endings were because they were written in the novel. Because to spoil a little bit, the novel apparently had, like they said in the movie, had multiple endings, and the way they were able to do these 2 endings in this movie they were able to do 2 of the endings that were actually in the novel. So that's kind of why. So it just felt like, she's doing this because of reasons, and the reasons being that's what the novel is, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is, and I think you kind of said this too, is that I think the reason why we have these parallel stories telling is because they're both having an affair. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, but I wish we would have got either Anna in modern times, I either wanted her to be exactly like Sarah and manipulative and all that kind of stuff, or be the polar opposite of Sarah and be a contrast to that, right? So I either wanted her to complement that character, or be a complete contrast to it. And I don't think we get any of that. So really, like, the jumping out is just, for me, jarring, and it doesn't really add to that story, right? It doesn't give us a new way of looking at it or a new lens to look through. It's just like, these actors who are playing, lovers, secret lovers and all that kind of stuff are also having their own affair and being secret lovers. And that's really it. It doesn't really want to go into deeper or talk about it or describe it or give you a different point of view or show how, like, her playing this role in life in the movie is bleeding into her real life, and now she's looking to go out and be more promiscuous or date them. Like, you don't get any of that from it. You just get like these flashes of them and stuff like that. And I do like, so that's disappointing. The acting stuff I find interesting, especially after watching like 8.5. And I think if we could take all the acting stuff and condense it together, it might pair well with 8.5. Just like another look at the filmmaking style. But there's not a lot of meat on that bone.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately I'm with you in that it's just kind of, it feels a little empty. It feels like it's building up and trying to show this whole lot, but just by the end and by the contrast, it just feels like it doesn't really deliver on anything, right?
Yeah.
And I think Meryl Streep does a good job. I like seeing Jeremy Irons. Everyone's competent.
Yeah.
It just feels like the movie, it feels like one of those movies that has a lot of buzz, like the movie's like generating all this buzz and goodwill, and you're like, oh man, this is gonna be really interesting, and then it just really like doesn't deliver on it. This is how it felt for me watching it,
So when I watched this film, it reminded me of a movie that came out a year prior to this in 1980 called Somewhere in Time, which is a beloved Christopher Reeve film.
Yep. I've never seen it, but
him and Jane Seymour, I think. Well, I have seen it, and I feel similarly as this movie, because in that movie, he is a present-day person who goes to a hotel, and my memory of this is foggy, so I'll probably get some details wrong, but he goes to this hotel, and he's basically transported back in time, and has this, not love affair, because I don't think she's married or anything, but he has this lovely romance with this Jane Seymour character. I believe it's Jane Seymour. I could look it up, but I'm too lazy. But he has this affair, this love romance with this Jane Seymour character, and I think he goes back to present day and then goes back. I want to say it jumps back and forth.
Yeah.
He goes back. So it kind of reminds me of this. Again, you've got the same people in different time periods, essentially, even though these people are playing roles or whatnot. But it reminded me of that. And once again, I feel like that movie, it's pretty to look at. It's got some cool ideas, but overall, it just kind of leaves me cold. Yeah, and I feel the same way about the French Lieutenant's Woman. It's watchable. It's pretty to look at. Good acting, etc. But overall, it didn't have a lot of meaning to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It would have been really interesting if I was just thinking about this. It would have been really interesting if like one of the actors in the movie in the 1800s is like had a very modern accent, like a Tom Cruise or like Sean Connery accent, like completely not akin to like the period that they're in, or they're a really bad actor.
Yeah.
So every time you're like in the movie, it's like, someone's like really, really bad or being really hammy. That would have been cool. It doesn't happen, but I was just thinking that would be cool.
Yeah, well, and like you said, I mean, I wish that there was more of a connecting thread between the storyline of the actors and the actual period. Yeah. There's some way for it to bleed into, because it does feel like the reason that they have it in the film, again, it's interesting, but the reason that they have it in the film is just so that they can have their multiple endings. And you've got the two people; they're both having an affair, in both storylines, but it should have more overlap and more something to tie it all together.
Four Weddings and a Funeral did it better. So I was gonna read a little bit of my notes, not to interrupt you or anything.
No.
So the novel French Lieutenant's Woman does not feature a subplot of the actors and actresses playing the parts in the modern movie. The novel did, however, feature, maybe I was wrong about that earlier, 3 alternative endings from which the readers could choose their favorite.
It's like choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Turn to page 6.
So creating the parallel story allowed the filmmakers to include 2 of those endings, one happy, one tragic. So I read that as include 2 of those endings as the modern version of it, but I guess that's not it. It's just that they could choose, the endings, and gave them, like you said, one of each. I wonder what the third one was. You have one happy, one tragic. What do you have? One
where they both die.
Scooby-Doo ending.
One that's really tragic. Yeah, we would have got away with it if it hadn't been for.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Old Man Irons.
So this movie was the first Academy Award, I already said that, nomination for Best Actress for Meryl Streep, who did not win. This movie also got a lot of other Oscar noms. So we said Best Actress in a Leading Role as Best Writing, Best Screenplay based on material from another medium, Best Art Direction, Set Direction, Best Costume Design, and Best Editing. It won none of those, apparently.
You're right. Best Actress was Katharine Hepburn, and I did look this up beforehand. Oh. Katharine Hepburn won for On Golden Pond. Adapted Screenplay was On Golden Pond. Costume Design was Chariots of Fire, and Art Direction and Editing were won by Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great movie. All right. Well, that was. Where do the critics fall on the French Lieutenant Woman?
So I watched this on HBO Max.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in the Criterion Collection, if you care to own it or rent it or whatever. It's 82% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 67% audience. It did get 2 thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert. Siskel put it as number 10 on his best films of 1981. And I'm not going to make you guess what he put as the best film of 1981 because it's hard. It's a hard one.
On Golden Pond.
It's not on Golden Pond. Hey, it's not Raiders of the Lost Ark, unfortunately. It's Ragtime, which I've never seen. So can't speak to that. Leonard Maltin gives it 3.5 stars.
All right. Well, that was our thoughts on the French Lieutenant's Woman. On these Wednesday episodes, we like to answer viewer questions, and we pulled one this week about an actress that we saw in a movie on Monday, which was Holly Hunter. So we want to talk about our favorite Holly Hunter roles or favorite Holly Hunter movie. I have one movie lock and loaded in my brain of my favorite. Do you have anything? She was in like you said a little bit earlier, in A Simple Plan. I get those.
Blood Simple.
Blood Simple. Both have Simple in it.
The voice on the answering
machine. She's the voice on the answering machine.
And that's her best role by far.
That's her best role. Anything else you want to add? And she was in Home for the Holidays, which we watched last Halloween Christmas area because that was a Halloween / the movie
Thanksgiving, not Halloween.
Oh, sorry, Thanksgiving. Yeah, you're right. Oh, yes.
Although you might see it as scary. I don't know.
I do think it's scary. Well, the movie we paired it with was scary. The other Home for the Holidays.
Yeah, right. The Sally Field one with the pitchfork killer. Yeah, so looking through her filmography here, so she was in the Coen Brothers Blood Simple, although she was only a voice on an answering machine, but she did get her time in the sun with Raising Arizona, Coen Brothers movie, and also Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yep.
So she's in, and maybe some more, but those are the first two Coen Brothers movies other than Blood Simple that I'm seeing. I really only wanted to, before I kind of say what my favorite Holly Hunter film is, the only other movies that I really wanted to point out is one, Miss Firecracker, which is a late 80s film where she enters like a beauty pageant. I remember that being pretty good. And then as we were kind of looking through, she did do a Spielberg movie, which is Always, with her and Richard Dreyfuss, which I have seen once. I don't remember a whole lot, but I thought it was okay. I like the score's John Williams. I mean, no surprise. I like the score to it quite a bit.
She's in The Firm.
She's in The Firm.
You said she was nominated for
Best Supporting Actress for The Firm, yeah, and lost to Anna Paquin, her pint-sized co-star in The Piano. But yeah, I mean, everything kind of post-2000. Some of it I've seen, but nothing I'm going crazy over. So I will say my favorite Holly Hunter film, and I've mentioned this movie a lot on the show, it's Raising Arizona.
Yep.
Coen Brothers.
I still have yet to see that.
Yeah. Well, the day's coming, my friend.
Oh, it's coming.
What about you, Holly Hunter? Where do you fall in Holly Hunter movies?
For me, I haven't seen a whole lot, but the one movie she's in is one of my top probably 10, top 20 movies of all time. So I had to choose that, even though it's an animated movie and she's voice acting in it. But I think she does a great job as Elastigirl, and that is The Incredibles. I'm a big fan of that movie. The second one, kind of not so much, but Brad Bird's The Incredibles, the best Fantastic Four movie ever made, and probably one of the best superhero movies. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't disagree, because the Fantastic Four movies have been, the live action Fantastic Four movies have not been pleasant.
No, they have not. All right, so that's where I am with Holly Hunter. All right, guys. Well, let us know what your favorite Holly Hunter movies are. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. Please submit your viewer questions to us. realshame@gmail.com. We need those viewers' questions. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff. It really does help spread the word, and we really do appreciate that. And stay tuned next week. Is next week Shark Week, or is that coming?
It's a couple of weeks, I think, away. I think we got 2 weeks and then Shark Week.
All right. Stay tuned next week as we watch the movies from my list of shame, and we'll see you soon, guys. Have a good one. Bye.